Kakalosh Boker Tov, we're going to be continuing on Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph, 44a1, right? This is Masechet Eruvin. We were talking about, right, what exactly is going on in a case where, I will just start on the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Bet over there, where we said that Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was sitting behind Rava, Rava was in front of Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak told to Rava, what was the question of Chasta? If we're talking about the case is that there were enough people that they were surrounding the person. The person, what happened was he started going into his learning. He didn't realize and he went outside of the tchum. So we said surround him with a human being wall, right, with a wall of human beings, and then he would be able to come back inside the tchum. So he says, if you're going to tell me that the Malu Gavra Skina, we're talking about there's people from where he is until back to inside of the tchum, and the question is, the Hilchata Karam Gamliel, the Lacha is like Karam Gamliel, which means that somebody that took him outside against his will, and as long as he's mukaf mechitzot, as long as he has mechitzot surrounding him, he's allowed to come back inside. Or maybe the halacha is not like Rabbi Gamliel, but rather like Rabbi Shon Rabbi Kiva, that they say that he only has 4 amot. Well, Dilmar, maybe we're back on Memdalo de Mudalef. This is where we're starting today, right? Even though we did this yesterday as well, just the first part. So he says, Dilmar, maybe we're talking about that the people, they're not all the way there. The question is, do we pass like Rabbi Eliezer, that he says that as long as that he's within the two amot of the tchum, he's okay. So therefore, the tchum, 2 amot free, right? That means there's nothing there. And then he has all the people surrounding him. So when he's walking back with all the people surrounding him that are like a wall, as long as he's within the 2 amot from the tchum, do we paskin like Rabbi Eliezer that it's going to be permitted? Or in halakha Rabbi Eliezer, do we paskin like the Chachamim, they argue Rabbi Eliezer, that even within those two amot is also going to be prohibited? So says the Gemara, for sure, we're talking about a case where there was no people from where he is until the tchum. These we're talking about that there are enough people. Mighty baile. What's the safek then? What's the doubt? Ha'amar Rav. Rav already said above. Omen bet amud bet. Halacha Rabbi Gamliel bet yitzam sunnah. The halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel to do with the 2 different types of the barns. One was in the field and one was in the house, right? In the city area. Usfina and the boat. And therefore, if right now we already said that it's permitted to go in the entire thing, so for sure then we paskin that he's allowed to go back inside the tchum. That means we paskin like Rabbi Gamliel. Elavadai, but rather for sure, but we're talking about that there was no people surrounding the entire area. The Rabbi Eliezer coming by land, and the machloket is in Rabbi Eliezer, do we hold that even though you only went out 2 amot from the tchum, within those 2 amot, is it permitted or prohibited? According to Rabbi Eliezer, permitted. According to Chachamim, prohibited. Says the Gemara Dai Karami, we could also deduce the same thing. The Kamalei, but he says Yikanes. What does it mean that you make him a mechitza of people and Yikanes, he should go in? Ma Yikanes. What does it mean he should go in? Right? So he says, isn't it talking about love below mechitza? We're not talking about that he doesn't have a mechitza, right? Which means that there's no mechitza on the other 2 amot, and that's why he's allowed to come inside. Okay? So the Gemara is going to come and say like this. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Rava. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak comes and he asks to Rava, and he says as follows. Sorry, something happened. Right? And he says as follows. Okay? He says like this. He says, Nafal dofna. What happens right now if the wall of the sukkah fell on Yom Tov? So it says, Lo yamid ba'adam behema v'kelim. You shouldn't put, instead of the wall that fell, a human being, an animal, or utensils. Velo yiskof, and you shouldn't put the sukkah, right? Velo yiskof et amita lifros ala sadin, or don't put, right, the bed, right, in order to put the sadin on top of it, right? That it would be like a mechitza. I mean, if you put up a bed and then you put like a sadin, you put like a drape or whatever in order to be there. Lifi she'eno sin oel aray betchila b'yom tov. You're not allowed to make an oel aray lechatechila b'yom tov. An oel aray is like a tent. It's like a covering, right? An ohel. So therefore, you're not allowed to do the lechatchila b'yom tov. Obviously not on Shabbat. Okay, so therefore, if right now,
because by just bringing up the bed is enough to be a wall, the wall that fell. So what is the sadin going to do there?
The sadin is making the tent. The wall is just the wall. I understood. Let me say here.
The wall that fell is the bed that he's bringing up, that he cannot use. So what do we need the sadin for?
It says here, kula prutza. Look in the footnote, it says here, medubar kam mizgeret shel mita. So you have like the frame, like in Israel. You know that in Israel you have the frame of the bed, and then you have like a wood
Okay.
on the thing, and then they put the mattress, and then they put you sleep on it. So the same thing. He says it's prutza, and therefore you need the sadin in order that the sadin is considered the mechitza. Because he says he says, because if not, then you're right.
Because
Then it's like what you said.
Yeah,
But it's only a frame. But if not, then it's like what you said. And it's even without the sadin, it would be already a kosher mechitza. Okay. So here, what we're trying to say though is that you're not allowed to do a mechitza on Shabbat with human beings. So right. So he says v'chen kol mechitza, right? So therefore, how did he permit to do a mechitza through human beings? Meaning, the question that we're asking ourselves is, what was the idea? The idea was, imagine right now, right? Richard Moore, he's so engrossed in his Aim Baines and Masechet Megillah over there, and he's between one thing and another thing, he loses his mind. He goes straight outside of the tchum. Yeah. So now what happens? Now he's got a problem. How does he come back inside? So now they come, right, and they ask a rabbi, and the rabbi comes and he says, okay, fine, start making a mechitza around him. So you get, John Jack, you get Alush, you get Barak, you get Jackie, you get Amichai, right? You get Akka, you get everyone, you're going around, and they make a circle around him. And now he's able to come back inside. 1 second, you just made a mechitza, and you're not allowed to make a mechitza lechatchila on Shabbat, just like you're not allowed to make a mechitza lechatchila, right? Even though it's a rai, even though it's not fixed, right? On Yom Tov, Kol Sheken on Shabbat, that's what he said. So to here, so he answers, Atamat li miha, you're coming and you're bringing me a proof from here. I'm going to bring you another place. It says in a Braita, a person is allowed to make his friend into a wall in order that he could eat, drink, and sleep in the sukkah. Or you're allowed to pick up a bed and put a sadin there, right? Again, you can put the sheets there in order that the sun will not come and put all its rays on top of a deceased, and it's not good. Obviously, it's going to become rotten, the corpse. Or on the food, so that way you shouldn't get ruined. So you see from here that you are allowed to do it, right? There's no problem. So says the Gemara, Kashena Dadi. Okay, fine, you're right. I brought you a proof from A, you brought me a proof from B, but A and B are contradictory. Are you allowed to or not allowed to decide? So says the Gemara, yeah, Kashena Dadi. Says the Gemara, la Kashya. It's not a question. Why? Ha Rabbi Eliezer, ha Rabbanan. One of them is Rabbi Eliezer, and one of them is Rabbanan. Yeah, one of them is Rabbi Eliezer, and one of them is Rabbanan. The Tram is we learned in the Mishnah. Pekach HaChalon. When we have a Pekach HaChalon, which is basically we're talking about over here, a Luach HaChalon. We're talking about anything that you put in the window, right, in order to close it. It's like remember, a Pekach is like a cork. You have a Pekach of a bottle cork. Same thing. Pekach HaChalon means you have a window. Now, how did you close the window? It wasn't like there was glass or anything. They used to cover it. They used to put something in the window to close it. So Rabbi Eliezer says, "Izman shekashur, right, v'talui pokikimbo." As long as it's tied up, right, with a rope to the building, right, and it's not dragging on the floor, and it's rather talui ba'avir, which means it's hanging in the air. Pokikimbo, you're allowed to close the window with it. And why? Because when you come and you take it, yeah, we learned this already. Yeah, in Shabbat, the end of Shabbat. Right, but then you know that it's part of the binyan, and therefore it's not like boneh, right? So therefore it's not even yisum d'Rabbanan. But if not, you're not allowed to do that. Because if not, it looks like you're boneh, and so on and so forth. It says here that it's domeh leboneh mamash. It could be even doraita. Chachamim argue. Chachamim said no. Benkach doesn't matter how. You're always for kimbo. You could just put it inside to close the window, and there's no problem. Why? Because it's only binyan arai. It's not fixed. You don't always leave it there. You put it there for the nighttime. You don't want cats coming in or rats or I don't know what or burglars. But then afterwards you take it out. Okay? So v'hayit maralai was stated on this. Rabbi Yochanan says, Hakol modim, everybody agrees, whether Rabbi Eliezer or Chachamim, she'eno sin ol harai b'tchila b'yom tov. You're not allowed to do an ol harai at the beginning in Yom Tov. Remember, ol harai means a not fixed tent. Then tzarich lomar b'Shabbat. You don't have to say on Shabbat that you're not supposed to do that. So lo nechleku. So when is a machloket then? They're not arguing only leosif, only to add onto an ohel harai. Right? Tosefet harai, something that you're adding on something. So Rabbi Eliezer says emosfin, that you're not allowed to add on Yom Tov. And you're not supposed to even say it on Shabbat. That means for sure you're not allowed to do it on Shabbat. Chachamim say mosifin b'Shabbat. You're allowed to do add on Shabbat, and you don't have to say for sure on Yom Tov you're allowed to add that. Okay. So now we're going to try to answer the two braitot. But it's not a question. Rabbi Meir, right? Rabbi Yehuda. One is Rabbi Meir, one Rabbi Yehuda. The time we learned on the Braita, asal be'ema dof in a sukkah, It's a machloket tanaim. If you made an animal into a wall of the sukkah, Rabbi Meir says it's pasul, because maybe the animal is going to run away, you're not going to realize, and you just left without a kosher sukkah. Rabbi Yehuda says it's going to be kosher. Rabbi Meir, the kapasilatam Rabbi Meir that says that it's pasul over there, he says, Alma la mechitza, consider mechitza. Hacha shadi, but here it should be permitted, right? De lav de kavid, because there's nothing there. Which means that, for sure, that's what he says over here, it's only made for tzniut. You understand?
He says it still would be no good.
Exactly, because you didn't do anything. That's what he's saying. Mechitza ra'it eno mo'ila lachshir v'sila tzniut. It's only made for tzniut. It's not made for mechitza. So therefore, even though you're doing it, you have nothing to permit it. Rabbi Yehuda that says that you're allowed to use an animal. Alam mechitza. So you see from here that an animal is a good mechitza. So hacha asar, here it should be asur. Right? Why? He says, because since it helps to make the sukkah kosher, right? So he says over here, so you're not allowed to do it on Shabbat or Yom Tov, right? Even though it's a mechitza, right? So it comes out that the Braita of Rav Nachman Yitzchak that says that it's a sur is going to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay? So says the Gemara, we disagree with this. Why? Says the Gemara, right, as follows. Says the Gemara, V'tizbra, is it logical? He says, Eimar de Shama le Rabbi Meir. When do we say this of Rabbi Meir, that he says it's a pasul to use an animal as a wall of a sukkah? That's only by be'ema adam v'kelim. That's only by be'ema. Why? Because an animal could just take off, and you didn't realize, or you can't control the animal. You're in the middle of eating, and all of a sudden just took off. So he says, however, though, by adam v'kelim yishamale. But what about adam v'kelim? A human being has that; he knows what he's doing, and a utensil is not going to run off. So therefore, where's the machloket over there? So it says the Minavet too, and furthermore, Rabbi Meir aliba deman. Who's Rabbi Meir going according to? Why? If he's going like Rabbi Eliezer, his rabbi, right, that he says you're not allowed to do a stimara'it of the chalon, you're not allowed to put this in the window, the kaka chalon, to close the window, lo sif nami asar, because even to add on is going to be prohibited, right? So therefore he says for sure it's going to be asur, right? Ela liba de rabbanan has to be going according to the rabbis. So the rabbis only talked about lo sif, but were the rabbis talking about even lechatchila? So says the Gemara, right, because they never talked about lechatchila. They were only talking about lo sif, you're adding something on. So says the Gemara, rabbanan, really be'emet, it's both the rabbis. The kilim, there's not a contradiction in the utensils. Ha bedofen shlishit, ha bedofen revit. One of them is a dofen shlishit, which means you have two walls, and now you're putting a third wall, and therefore this third wall is not a tosefet on binyan kayam, but rather you're making the binyan. And that's why he says it's going to be asur. But here, if you already had three walls, and you're only doing a fourth wall, the sukkah is already kosher. It's already considered a binyan. It's already a building. So when you're adding on, it's only mosif. And therefore, according to the rabbis, it's going to be permitted. Economic Tani, you could also deduce this from that which we learned in the Braita, Nafal Dofna, right, that the dolphin fell. Meaning you already had the third dolphin there. It's right that you already had it there, right? So therefore, it's not that you're doing this like that. You understand? Fine. Shema Mina. So that's exactly what it teaches us. Yeah, the be'emet that it's going to be Osera Binyan Rai is only talking about a dolphin shlishi. Right, the third wall was going to be dolphin revi. It's going to be permitted. Right, sorry, right. Memdala de Mubet. Right, 44b. El Adam Adam Kashya. But 1 second. Okay, fine. You answered up utensils. What about human beings to human beings? So it says Adam Adam Nami lo Kashya. One human being to another human being is also not a question. Why? Kan ladat. Kan shelo ladat. The case where we're talking about, right, where a person knows that he's being used as a mechitza, so when he's there bechavana, it's like a mechitza kavua. And therefore, you're not allowed to do that midrabanan because you're adding on to binyan arai. However, though, the second braita was he didn't realize that he was being used as a mechitza. So therefore, when he's not there bechavana as a mechitza, it's not like a mechitza kavua. It's not like a fixed mechitza. So therefore, you're allowed to use him. Right? So imagine, you come and you tell your son, or you tell somebody, listen, speak to him right there. And then the way that they're standing, they're between the two of them, right? They might be a little bit also chubby or whatever it is, so they fill up more space, yeah? So what happens is that all of a sudden they're filling up, right? They're making the mechitza. So now they didn't realize it, whatever. Let's say they both didn't realize it. You have three people there, and one of them, you know what I'm saying? So in such a case, it's going to be kosher. In the case of Nechemia Bereder Chanina, it was the dat, and therefore that's why he says it's going to be asur, right? So he says it should be asur, because he knew he was being used as mechitza. So answers the Gemara, no, shalom midat, it was shalom midat, it wasn't midat, he didn't know. So says the Gemara, Rav Chasta miya ledat hava. Says 1 second, but Rav Chasta did know, because he was the one that grabbed the people to put it there, to make them into a mechitza. So says the Gemara, Rav Chasta shalom, he wasn't part of the minyan. Meaning he was the one that gathered together the 10 people, but he didn't make them understand that they were a minyan. That they were part. He didn't make them understand that they were the mechitza. So for he knew he wasn't part of the minyan of the mechitza. Okay, nekuda.
Look at the footnote. Look at the footnote. Gives a good summary.
I don't know where you are.
Summary, a big summary. You see it? Are you?
Here it is. According to that chachamim that permit to add onto a binyan to Sefer Tarai on Shabbat and Yom Tov, you're allowed to add onto a sukkah kshera the fourth wall. Right? But you're not allowed to put the third wall, even though it's a mechitza ra'it, even though it's a not fixed mechitza. And you're not allowed to ask somebody to stand there if he knows that he's standing there. But if he doesn't know, so you're allowed to ask him to stand there, because then it's not considered like binyan. Now, even though everybody holds that you're not allowed to make a mechitza shlema ra'it, you're allowed to make a mechitza of bnei adam that they don't know that they're being used, right, as a mechitza. But since it's not normal to make a binyan out of human beings, it's permitted. So therefore, you could use that as a third one, or to grab people and make them outside of the tchum, like the story of Reb Nechemia. Very nice. Very good. Thank you, Richard. Fine. Next. Hanau b'nei Genana. There were people that they were by a chuppah. So imagine they're by a wedding. The Ailu Maya, right? The water, that they brought water from Reshut Abin to Reshut Echid b'mechitza shel bnei Adam. That they brought in water through a mechitza of human beings. Nagdinu Shmuel. So Shmuel came and he started giving them lashes. Right? Makam ardut. Right? Amar, and he said, Im amru shelo midat, yomru ledat. That was only permitted if there was a midat. Here they knew what they were doing, right? So therefore, again, they can't make a mechitza this way. They know what they're doing. Okay? Another case. There were kli or, there were utensils of leather, right? That they put wine and other liquids inside of them. That they belonged to Rava. And they were in the streets of Mechuza. When Rava was coming back from his learning, right? So what happened was, so his shamash brought them inside. The Shabbat Achrita, the next Shabbat, right, when again they were in the street. I don't know why, I don't know what's going on here, but again they were in the street. Shabbat, he wanted to do it. He said it's asur. Because now they already know what's going on, and therefore it's asur. Which means even though they didn't know, right, he said that since he already did it once with the mechitza, he says the second time around they're gonna pay attention, and therefore it's gonna be asur. That means even though again the first time around they didn't realize it, and maybe even now they didn't realize it, he didn't want them to get accustomed to it. Was maybe they are going to start realizing it, and then again you have a problem. So therefore he just prohibited it. Okay? Other cases. Lev ya'ilu letivna uzira aspasta shimrechia maya. So it says, right, for Levi, they brought in from Reshut Yechid, Reshut Abin to Reshut Yechid, with the mechitzot bnei Adam, they brought in tevin, right, grains. For Ziri, they brought in aspasta, which is like a type of a yerek that didn't grow to the full amount. Usually they give it to the animals. It's only, it grows like a third, and then they cut it down. You know, they brought in water. Okay? Fine. Says the Mishnah, somebody that went outside of his tchum with permission. For example, right, to testify about Kiddush HaChodesh, right, for the new moon, right, or to save, right, from the tzavah. Right? Basically, it was a sakana. Or miyaledet, a woman that midwife, right? That she's going to help a woman give birth. Amrulo, they told him, right? Kvar na'asa ma'aseh, it was already done. So yeshlo 2,000 mamot l'chol ruach. He's got 2,000 amot to every single direction. Im haya betoch hatchum, if he was within the tchum, then anyways, kilu lo yatsa. He didn't go out. Kol yotzim la'atzil chozim kumam. But anybody that goes out to save, they come back. By the way, this is the yesod that nowadays they permit a doctor to go back home or a midwife to go back home on Shabbat. For example, let's say a midwife is called to the hospital on Shabbat. So they come and they allow them to go back home. And there's a famous question why. This is the yesod, but we're going to see a little bit more. Let's see the Gemara, but this is the yesod that we're talking about. Right? That means even lechalel Shabbat to go back home. That's what we're talking about. Okay, but if not, then they wouldn't go out. We'll speak about it. So says the Gemara, what does it mean that if he was within the tchum and he didn't leave the tchum, it's as if they didn't leave the tchum? Well, obviously, right? What does it mean, kilu lo yatsa? Hu lo yatsa. It's like he didn't go out. He didn't go out. So Amar Rabba comes and he says, Hachi kamar. This is what he means to say. He says, yeah, as follows. He says, Im haya betoch hatchum, yeah, shelo, kilu lo yatsa mitoch beto dami. If he was within his own tchum, so it's as if he didn't go outside of his house. And therefore, even though Be'emet he did go outside of his house, it's kilu he didn't go outside of his house. So it says Gemara Pshit, obviously, saying he didn't go out of the tchum. So what do you care? What's the difference? So it says Gemara, I would have thought to say the second that he already went outside of the tchum, he was already a karatzmo, and therefore now there's a new alpay mama, and therefore now what happens is that you don't go from his house, you go from the 2,000 amot from where he is. Okay, Kamash Malan comes to teach you that's as if he's still inside of his house and he never left his house from the beginning. Shimi Berachia says, Hachi Kamar, another explanation. What happens if the tchum that the rabbis gave him is muvla, is absorbed within his own tchum? Right? So it's kilu lo yatsa mitchumo. It's if he didn't go outside. So therefore he's allowed to go within the entire first tchum. That means you have, right, one tchum, and then you have another tchum. The second tchum was muvla within the first tchum. But now, if you give him the second one, he can't go to the other side, the other direction, all the way to the other side, like as if he was still at home. We say he's allowed to go on the other side because we give him back to his house. That's what we're doing. Understood? One more time. A person lives in Miami Beach. Yeah? So from Miami Beach, he came to Surfside. Let's say Surfside is still inside, right, of his tchum, right? But it's mamash at the end of the tchum. Okay, so now what happens is, if the rabbis would give him now the new tchum, so what would happen, right? He would be able to go back to Miami Beach, but he can't go back now on the other side. What's the other side? Midtown. You can't go on the other side. Let's pretend there was another side. Yeah?
No, back to where he comes from.
Back to his comfort, he for sure could go back, because it's still within the tchum.
So where?
We would have thought to say that now we give him the new tchum from here, from Surfside. So now if you give him from Surfside, he could still go back home. But now he can't go back to the other direction where he was allowed to go when he was in Miami Beach. So we come and we say, no, kilu lo yatsa mi beto, that he still could go to the other direction, as if he never left his house. So not only could he go back home.
East or west, you mean?
Yes, so now he could go all the way to the other side now. So that's what? That's south. No, that's south.
West.
Can't be. West is, that's east and that's west.
No,
East is towards
you
the
said...
Surfside to Miami Beach is south.
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 Yes. And then from there...
From there, he wants to continue going south. So for sure, he could go to Miami Beach to, let's say, South Beach, right? Because again, he came to Surfside, which is north. If we give him the new tchum here in Surfside, he could still go back to Miami Beach, but he wouldn't be able to go back to South Beach. But since we say it's kilu lo yatsa mi beto, he could still go back now to South Beach as well.
I don't know.
Capiche?
You have no pictures?
There's no pictures. On the one that we have, the next picture is Memhei, on the next daf.
I saw them. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you have pictures?
No. I saw this morning they were using pictures, but they were probably behind or something. I don't know.
Okay, we're going to share the screen just for this picture. This is the picture. Everyone sees it? Right here. Okay, it says over here, the tchum. It's muvla. Look, he went outside the alpay mama. Okay? So now, if we're going to tell you that you have the alpay mama, right? But if within the alpay mama, it's muvla betoch tchum, which means he still goes back to his original tchum, now we come and we say that he's allowed to go back without any problem.
I'm sorry, can you say it in English? I don't understand what you just said.
Sorry. Rav Shimi bar Chia says like this, right? If his tchum is, how do you say tchum in English? His boundaries, I don't know how you want to say it.
This man wandered outside by accident?
No, he went out with permission. That's what we're talking about our Mishnah. He went out with permission. So the rabbis gave him 2,000 amot. But in the middle, they told him, by the way, we don't need you anymore. Yeah, whether somebody testified about the new moon, whether it was that the midwife that they told her that she gave birth, whatever the case, they don't know. So now he's allowed to go back 2,000 amot. So now if they give him back the 2,000 amot, as long as the tchum that the rabbis gave him is muvla, is absorbed within his old tchum, which means that if he goes 2,000 amot, he gets within his original 2,000 amot. So now he's able to go back to the 2,000 amot. He's able to go back.
I got it.
Okay, everyone understood? Fine. Okay, fine. What's the machlok between Rabba and Rashimi, right? He says Rabba and Rav Shimi. So b'maika mipalgeh, more savar avlat tchumim minta. One of them holds that it helps. That means that as long as one of them is absorbed in the other one, it helps to now permit the entire
Overlaps.
That's a better word. Thank you very much. Overlaps, right? Umor savar, and the other one says la minta. It doesn't matter. Overlapping, I don't care about overlapping. So Amalei Abai Rabba says Abai to Rabba. What? You don't think that it's logical to say that overlapping should help? If right now you went and at the beginning of the onset of Shabbat, you were in a cave, right, that within it you have 4,000 amot in the cave. You have a picture there in the article.
A picture of the cave.
Yeah, it's just 4,000 amot inside the cave. Okay? Al-gaga, right, but on the top is less than 4,000 amot. So does it not come out that you're allowed to walk on the karka on top of it, right? As if because it's less than 4,000 amot between the two different entrances, and also outside of it, 2,000 amot every single time. Why? Because basically you have 2,000 amot for every single entrance. So since you have two different entrances, so therefore you have 2,000 amot on each side. So it comes out that since the two tchumim are overlapping within each other, basically you're allowed to walk 4,000 amot. It's a little bit less than 4,000, but we're talking about that. So Amalei, he comes and he says, says, 1 second, isn't there a differentiation whether he was, at the time when he was inside the mechitzot, the onset of Shabbat, then he's acquiring the two tchumim, but not when he's not, which means it all depends where he is. If he's
May try to keep it down, please.
What?
He's talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I had people talking.
Sorry, okay. So basically what happened is that we're talking about is that, right, the concept is that if right now you're inside the cave, so it's correct, then you get both of them, right? Because if you're inside of the cave, you get both entrances. On each entrance, you get 2,000 amot outside of the entrance. But if you're outside, you don't have mechitzot around you. The mechitzot are under you. So for sure, there's a difference between them. So says the Gemara, 1 second. But if you weren't in a place where you have the two tchumin because of one shita, lo, you're going to tell me it's not. The overlapping doesn't help, right? Memhe Amud Aleph, 45a1. But now we learned in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer says, Shtayim yikanes. If you were only 2 amot from the tchum, remember this is the same Rabbi Eliezer that we learned at the beginning of today. That within 2 amot of the tchum, you're allowed to go back to the original tchum. Shalosh, it's going to be 3. Lo yikanes, you're not allowed to go back inside. That means once you're 3 amot outside, that's it. My love, Rabbi Eliezer l'tameh, isn't it Rabbi Eliezer according to his own reasoning? The Amar that he says, right, that when we count the arba amot, the hu be'emtzan, and he's in the middle of them, so you have 2 amot for each side. The arba amot and the 4 amot the rabbi gave, it's like it's absorbed, right? It's overlapping. The ka'amar yikanes, and he said you're allowed to go in. So you see from here, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that the overlappings do help, and that's shitat Rabbi Eliezer. So says the Gemara, Amar le Rabba bar Chana la Abaye, Rabbi Eliezer come to the Lemon. Says 1 second, because of Rabbi Eliezer, you're going to start coming and asking a question on Rabba. The rabbi is arguing on Rabbi Eliezer. So what are you asking? Right? Meaning you're asking, for example, let's say you ask on me a question about according to one opinion. If I'm holding like the other opinion that the other one's arguing on, so what's the question? You're not asking anything. So Amalei, so he says, yes, the Shmiya Limine Demor, because I heard it from him. When do the rabbis not argue on Rabbi Eliezer? It's only if it's for stam, for no reason. If it was for a mitzvah, Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Eliezer, right, that the overlapping of the tchumim does help. And therefore, since we were talking about a Mishnah mitzvah, it does help, even according to the rabbis. So if it was a good question, okay, fine. 2 dots. Yeah, if you go out to save, you're allowed to come back. Vafilu tuva, ask the Gemara, you could go even more.
That's what it is for the
doctors and everything, yeah? So he says, are we talking about even if it's going to be more than 4,000 amot? V'amarta reisha, you told me only alpaim ama v'tulo, only 2,000 amot and no more. So answers the Gemara, Rav Yudam Rav, says the Rav, shechorzim b'klezaylim kuman. That means even though they don't need anymore the weapons and things like that, they're allowed to go back now. Right? That means they're allowed to be mechalel Shabbat by carrying it, whether it's in Shulman or Karmelit. Right? Because since at the beginning they went out to save, so now they're allowed to carry it back. Right? Why? Because since Shabbat is pushed off because of Pikuach Nefesh, but afterwards it should be asur. But they permitted it because of the following thing. My kushya says the Gemara, what's the question? Din malatzil shane. Maybe it was different because maybe they're going to save. Right?
It's amazing that they allow for these, but not a moed to move. These kids.
Yeah. Let's see. So he says, right? So he says like this. He says what? Maybe they're going to start chasing them again. Imagine right now they went out to war, right? They finished the job, right? The other ones, they ran away. All of a sudden, they have to drop their weapons and start walking home, right? The enemy is going to come back, grab the weapons, start attacking them. They're without anything. So obviously, so it says, no. This is the question. The Tanam we learned in Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah to do with the Edim, that they came, the witnesses that they came on Shabbat Yerushalayim from outside of the Tchum in order to testify about the new moon, to make the new moon. So he says, Barishona lo yuzazim misham. At the beginning, they wouldn't move from there. I kol yom kulo, the entire day until Motzei Shabbat. Hitkin Ram Gamliel Zaken, but then Ram Gamliel Zaken instituted sheyesh lehem arpayim amad l'chol ruach, that they would have 2,000 amot, right, to every single direction. Right? I guess he had to make this decree. It doesn't say why here, but okay, fine. So it says the Gemara, not only to the ones that testified, even to the ones, a woman that she's coming to be miyaled, right, as a midwife. So a person is going out to war in a nahar or from the sea, a polit or from a building, right, that crashed and they're trying to save them. Or from a fire. They have 2,000 amot. So says the Gemara, too low, but they only have 2,000 amot. Marta, you said, you're allowed to go back as much as you want, as much as you need.
It's a public policy. If they didn't allow it, then the people wouldn't go out and do it.
Exactly. So Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, we learned in the Braita, they used to bring back the weapons. They used to leave it in the first house by the wall. Once it happened, the Eiruvin, they recognized what happened, the enemies. And they ran after them. They went to get their weapons. There was more deaths caused by the people running to get their weapons, more than what the enemy killed them out. So because of that moment, they were allowed to go back with their own weaponry.
Maybe they were wearing those spiked sandals.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, we learned that once. That was where? That was in Shabbat also, no? That there were so many people that killed. Yeah, that was with a different...
I don't remember. Talking about shoes and sandals and sandals.
Yeah. Fine. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, it's not a question. Here we're talking about, right, that it was the Jews won the Goyim. So therefore, since the Jews won the Goyim, right, so therefore, there's no necessity anymore for carrying their weapons. But here we're talking about the Goyim killed the Goyim. It means the Jews, but we're using it as a euphemism. We don't want to say that they killed out the Jews. So they killed out the meaning, they killed out the Goyim, right? So if we're not going to permit them, so there's going to be even a bigger sakana. Okay? So therefore they're allowed to come and carry it. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Nochrim shetzaru ala ayerot Yisrael, Goyim that they came and they started making a siege on the cities of Israel. You're not allowed to come and go out with weapons or to be mechalel the Shabbat. We also learned to the right why we're going to explain now. Right? Nochrim shetzaru, right? They're not allowed to. The Medwin, when these words, if they came for money. Yeah, because basically if they came for money, it's not pikuach nefesh. Yeah, but if they came to kill out the Jews, you're allowed to do everything. To go out to mechalel Shabbat and everything. When you're going to talk about a city which is by the borders, even if they didn't come and they only came, you're allowed to go out with everything. Why? Because if they're going to come and they're going to conquer that city, they're going to conquer everything. So therefore, it's going to become a sakana for everybody. So therefore, you go out nechalel Shabbat and everything. By Babylonia, it's always considered like the borders. Right? And they meant by Nerda, right? Why? Because it was very, very close to the Goyim. And therefore, the second they come in, they will just continue going. What does it mean in the Pasuk? They told David saying, right, that the Palestinians were coming, the Palestinians were coming, right? And they were trying to, get from the granaries. Tana Kila was right, and they only came for food. Because it says Mefurash. However, though, right, he said, should I go kill them out? Go kill them out and save Kila. What was the question? If you're going to tell me it's permitted or prohibited, he said, well, there's a bedin. Ask the bedin. No, he was asking, does he going to have a tzachah or not a tzachah? Right? So if Pashut, he was able to go and fight there, and it was on Shabbat. But the question was, is he going to have that tzachah or not? You could say, and save it. That was whether they were going to have success or not success. Says a Mishnah. Yeah, there's another Mishnah after this. Yeah, says a Mishnah. Somebody that was stopped on the way, right, in order to rest. Right now, he didn't know that he already went inside of the tomb of the city. Right? And all of a sudden, so he's traveling. He stopped to rest, but he was already in the tomb of the city. Amad V'ra, now he looks and he says a city, that he's Samech Samuch Leid. Since he didn't have kavanah to go inside the city, lo yikanes, he's not allowed to go inside of the city. So it's only until the 2,000 amot, until the Knisat Shabbat, but that means because usually we say that the entire city is Dalad amot. Here, no. Since he didn't have in mind to go inside of the city, he has the 2,000 amot. He'll go to the entrance of the city, but he won't be able to go throughout the entire city, only in the beginning. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Only in the beginning.
Go back.
Okay? These are the words of Rabbi Meir. So according to Rabbi Meir, you only go until the end of the 2,000 amot, but you're not allowed to go into the entire city and everything. Okay? So he says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Yikanes, you're allowed to go inside of the city, right? Because if you would have known, you would have been there. You would have gone in. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, right? It once happened. Rabbi Tarfon went in without kavanah, right? And he actually did that. So it's mashma, he was bringing a ma'aseh, a story, as a proof. It says the Gemara Tanya went on to the right. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda, ma'aseh Rabbi Tarfon sheyamelech b'derech. There was a story of Rabbi Tarfon that he was going on the path. And it became nighttime.
Rabbi, can you look for a second at my picture here? You see this picture? Can he walk anywhere in the tomb around the city, or just in the black box?
No. So again, according to Rabbi Meir, only until the end of that white line. 1 second. I'm gonna spotlight you. Right? You see over here. According to Rabbi Meir, you only have until here. You see my cursor?
No.
That's Alpayim Amot.
That's Alpayim Amot, but you cannot go in the entire city.
No.
But according to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, you have the entire city. Capish?
Yeah, in other words, the black dot can go into the city, but he can't go beyond the city.
Yeah, but not only beyond the city, even in the city itself. You cannot go beyond the Alpayim Amot, even within the same city.
2,000.
Okay, next. Okay, in the morning, so they found them shepherds, and they told him, Rebbe, you've got the city right in front of you. Hikanes, go inside. He went inside, so he was giving the rashot and everything. So says the Gemara, Misham Raya, from there is a proof. Shema belibo haita, maybe bemet, he had it, or bet of the rash muvla b'tok tumoya, or it was overlapping. You remember the overlapping that we already spoke about. So the fact that it was overlapping, that's why it's going to be permitted. Let's just do the Mishnah and then we'll stop. Okay, so the Mishnah says, Nishi Yashan. So Mem Hamul Bet, just until the Gemara. We're almost done. It's going to go quickly. Nishi Yashan Baderech. Somebody that was sleeping on the path. Velo Yada Shecha Shecha. So therefore he didn't know, right? What happened was, he didn't know it became nighttime. That means he took a nap in the afternoon and all of a sudden it becomes Shabbat. Yesh lo apayim amal l'chol ruach. He has 2,000 amot for every single direction. These are words of Yochanan Menuni. Chachamim says, he only has 4 amot. Okay, why? Because he wasn't Konesh Shvita. He didn't acquire his place of the state. He didn't do it. He was sleeping. Yeah, a person that sleeps, nothing. Yeah, that's it. He doesn't have a thing. Rabbi Eliezer says, "Vehu be'emtza'an." Yeah, he says, what does that mean? He has 4 amot when he's in the middle, which means he only has 2 amot to each side. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ya le'ezer ruach shitzei elech." No, you have 4 amot, complete 4 amot, and whichever direction you have 4 amot. Okay, Umodeh Rabbi Yehuda.
That's also the Be'emtza'an is also.
No, be'emtza'an you only have 2 amot each side. You're in the middle. You have 2 amot there, 2 amot there. Now you have 4 amot complete on each side. On each side. However, though, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees to him that if he did decide which 4 amot he wants to take, so then he cannot go down to the 4 amot on the other side. Hayu shnayim, if there were 2 people, right, they were only permitted to go 4 amot. Now, again, they're overlapping their amot within them. They're allowed to eat in the middle. I'm going to share with you the screens so you see what we're talking about. Here it is. You see, look, 4 amot between them.
But it says
Okay, here there's 6 amot, but the 4 amot is muvla. They're overlapping. Here's overlapping. Everyone sees my cursor. They see the picture. Richard, you're paying attention to the screen.
Yeah, I got it. I got a picture. Yeah.
Exactly, social distancing. Yeah, they have more than social distancing. They're machmirim. There's 6 amot, right? The social distance is 4 amot. It's 2 meters. This is 6 amot. Okay, so they eat in the middle. Okay, where they're sharing the 2 amot. Okay, so it says as long as one is not taking out another one. Okay, ayush shlosha, if there were 3 people, right? Let's see if there's a picture of 3 people. Yeah, here's a picture of 3 people. Okay, so the picture of 3 people. Ayush shlosha, ha'imtzaim muvla b'nein. Now the middle one is muvla between both of them. Meaning his 4 amot is muvla within everybody else. So it says over here, muvla b'nein is overlapping. Hu mutarim, he's permitted with them, and they are permitted with him. But the 2 on the outside are prohibited with each other, but they're 2 completely far away. Right? Amar Rabbi Shimon says, what is the compared to? The shalosh chatzerot to the 3 in the previous one. So 3 chatzerot zu b'tzad zu b'tochot zuluzu u'tochot reshut rabim. Here you go. Look, you have 3 chatzerot which are open to each other and they're open to the reshut rabim. Okay. So what happens? Erev shtayim imayim tzait. If 2 of them, with the middle one, there's the eruv, with the middle one, right? He muteret imahen vehem mutarim imah, right? So basically, they're all permitted with that one. However, though the 2 outside ones, this outside where my cursor is, and this outside where my cursor is going to become prohibited. Okay, so we're going to.